Little does he know that 40 years from now, his decision to photograph the same four sisters will entice thousands of people. Even the final picture will bring tears to everyone's eyes, which he cannot fathom. Visiting his wife Beebe's family in Massachusetts, black and white portrait photographer Nicholas Nixon was on a photo shoot. Midway through his visit, he noticed Beebe, Heather, Mimi, and Lori, Beebe's three sisters, standing on the lawn, giggling and conversing in the gentle summer sun. Nixon grabbed his camera on a whim. He was oblivious to the fact that this fleeting exchange between the four sisters would ignite a 40-year endeavor, culminating in a body of work that would incite emotions that defied description. Without realizing it would become a lifelong project, Nicholas asked, "Can I take your picture?" in an almost casual voice. Following a quick look back and a shrug, the sisters formed a line. Although Bebe was accustomed to her husband's continual use of a camera, the other three were not quite as keen on the idea. Imagine if the image were to disappear. In 1975, the picture couldn't be seen until it was developed. What if the outcome wasn't to their liking? But they posed in an unforced way, with just a hint of self-awareness showing. As if they were skeptical of Nicholas, their brows furrowed. They hid their hands in their pockets and felt a bit withdrawn. Nixon was amazed by the photograph's strength and simplicity as he developed it. There was an enduring quality to it. The four young women, united as a family and as individuals, their lives continuing on indefinitely ahead. Even though it wasn't particularly noteworthy, Nicholas considered it a major accomplishment. And a concept started to take shape in his mind. If only the four sisters would agree, he would be set. At one of the sisters' graduation ceremonies the following year, Nixon proposed that they redo the picture. Stand in the same sequence as last year, he instructed, indicating the exact spots where the sisters had been. He noticed the parallels and subtle contrast between the two images as the film developed. The slightest shift, like a lowered gaze or an arm that hung looser, caught his eye. He spoke to them and asked, "What if we did this every year?" Surprisingly, they were in agreement. Undoubtedly, not a single one of them anticipated that the project would endure for 4 decades. Nicholas preferred to let the project unfold organically and had no idea when it would conclude. He was going to stop if one of the sisters ever said she'd had enough. The women, on their side, estimated that Nicholas would give it no more than a few years before moving on to more interesting topics. They reasoned that a single picture per year wouldn't make much of a difference. A 40-year undertaking thus got underway. Nixon would set up his 8x10 camera every year to take pictures of the four sisters as they stood in the same sequence: Heather, Mimi, Beebe, and Lori. At first, taking family portraits was an intimate affair between them and their siblings. However, as time went on, the project became more well-known and was subsequently shown in galleries all over the globe. The intimate and unadorned images captivated viewers. Their story, devoid of pretense, was the story of time and the life lived in the little, peaceful moments. At first, the sisters took part in the yearly photo selection with a laid-back demeanor. The question Nixon would ask after every shoot was, "Which one should we go with?" She would then lay out the shots. The sisters may take their time looking at each picture and commenting on peculiarities they found. Initially, the options seemed carefree and ordinary. As one scans the options, they may remark, "This one looks good," before deciding to move on. Maybe they didn't fully understand the significance of these pictures at the time, or maybe they just didn't yet feel the decision's weight. However, new significance emerged as time went on. The yearly photo shoots progressed from a lighthearted custom to something much more personal. Now that they understood the gravity of the project, the sisters took extra precautions when making their selections. Preserving their essence as individuals and as a group was more important than simply selecting a flattering image. It was about capturing a moment in time. Over time, they came to appreciate the photographs for what they were, a tangible testament to their connection to one another and the passage of time. Nixon also took note of the change. He observed that, especially in the last 10 years of the project, the sisters seemed to finally grasp that this was more than just a casual family photo every year, as the process of selecting the final photo became a considerably more collaborative affair than before. Earlier on, Nixon's input was more weighty when making a final call. Lighting, composition, and frame balance were all technical considerations that he was sensitive to in his role as an artist. However, the sisters' opinions became increasingly prominent and influential over time. They started to view the photos as more than just his artwork. They were telling their story, and they wanted a say in every detail. The sisters' bond with one another and with Nixon was strengthened by this partnership. They used to gather every year to look over the pictures, but now they take their time with each one. Their conversations got more passionate and engaging. Nicholas wasn't interested in merely capturing a picture. Now that he was an only child, he was seeing the sisterhood and sibling bonds in a whole new light. Along with the photographs themselves, the collaborative process became an integral aspect of the custom. There was a marked increase in the degree of intimacy and mutual regard in this dynamic during the last decade. Despite Nixon's disapproval, the sisters once voted unanimously for a shot. At first, he was hesitant, bringing attention to the technical issues with the lighting. But he gave in when he saw their resolve. He explained, "I have to be fair here," before stepping back to allow them to make up their own minds. There was a small but noticeable change at that moment. He realized the project wasn't just his, but theirs too. Choosing the photo each year became a quiet time of contemplation for the sisters. It was an opportunity to reflect on who they are as a whole and how they fit into the universe. Their younger selves, with fresh faces and intense, youthful eyes, appeared frozen in time. The lines deepened, the hair grayed, and they noticed the subtle shifts in their postures as they leaned in closer to each other. Above all else, they noticed a change in expression, as if they had grown to trust Nicholas more with each passing moment. In addition to showing that aging is inevitable, the photos also showed how lovely it was that they adjusted to it together. There was a shift in Nixon's involvement as well. In his younger years, he played the role of the outsider, a discreet observer who recorded their dynamic together through his camera. However, his involvement in their lives grew stronger as time went on. Subtly reflected in the images was his own role. In 1981, 1983, and 1984, he appeared in a shadow that suggested he wished he could be a part of the group he admired. Nixon's and the sisters' mutual trust shone through in their facial expressions as they entered their latter years. Their once guarded and inward-looking eyes betrayed a newfound friendliness and ease toward the man who had chronicled their voyage for so many years. Nixon simply acknowledged, "We've gotten close," a statement with multiple meanings. There had to be a lot of respect and love between them after seeing these women change over the course of 40 years. A sisterly bond and the opportunity to observe sibling interactions were certainly not the only aspects of the project. Something more profound was going on, and they weren't all ready to understand it just yet. They, and others, didn't fully appreciate what had been accomplished over the past 4 decades until the entire project was unveiled. The series' strength lay in its ability to reflect the universality of aging rather than merely in the photographic artistry of Nixon. Their smooth skin and bright, potential-filled eyes make the sisters seem incredibly young at first. However, as time goes on, one can't help but notice the telltale signs of aging, such as a change in posture, a strand of gray hair, or a wrinkle caused by laughter. The Brown sisters stood in front of the camera every year and declared, "This is us," even though society typically tells women to cover up these signs of aging. Photos were taken without the use of retouching, forced poses, or fake smiles. They were lovely in their simplicity and rawness. Despite how little the sisters had revealed about themselves in real life, it appeared like they spilled the beans in those pictures. A privilege, not something to be hidden, is growing older, and that was the message it sent. After 40 years of work, the group decided to call it quits. There was plenty of room for the project to continue for another 10 or 20 years, but the sisters already felt the impact of the reflections it had given them. Seeing all 40 pictures laid out made them appreciate all the ways they had transformed, even though they had never been an appearance-obsessed family. For women in particular, getting older can be a challenge. Society often tells them to hide their wrinkles, dye their gray hair, and pretend they're younger because it's more attractive. The 40 images, however, disproved that notion. The 4 average women featured in the project embraced rather than fought against the natural aging process. The sisters were fortunate to witness more than just the art of aging. Looking at all the pictures together, it was easy to see that time had also brought them closer. The early photographs showed them standing apart, with more individualistic poses and eyes that hinted at a young self-consciousness. But as the years passed, their physical proximity became increasingly obvious. As they leaned slightly into each other, an arm would drape over a shoulder and a hand would rest on a waist. They seemed to be growing closer as time went by, instead of growing apart. The sisters were far from youthful when the show entered its 40th year. The wrinkles around their mouths and eyes were evidence of the weight of their lives, which included both happy and sad moments, as well as hardships and successes. Still, they exuded an air of calm dignity, the self-assurance that comes from embracing rather than fighting against the inevitable march of time. The final image was particularly moving because it beautifully depicted this acceptance. A lovely project came to a close, but a new approach to the art of aging may have begun at this very moment. An overwhelming sense of emotion washed over visitors as they made their way through the exhibition, following the lives of these 4 women from their 20s into their 60s. It was the sisters' graceful, genuine, and resilient way of facing time's inevitable passage that brought tears, not the passage of time itself. As viewers recognized themselves in the final image, it appeared as though the entire audience had broken down in tears. The series depicted the inevitable passage of time and the precariousness of human existence. The last shot, though, managed to capture the essence of it all as well, with their gentle smiles and leaning into each other. The reality that nothing lasts forever had to be accepted by all. The Brown Sisters is ultimately more than just a photo album. This 40-year-long personal project was shared with the world to show that aging is a beautiful thing, not something to be afraid of, but to welcome. Since the last photo signifies the end, it does not make us cry. Its portrayal of life as transient, flawed, and profoundly meaningful is so beautiful that it brings tears to our eyes. Does the final picture make you cry? Do you think the world should be more accepting of the aging process? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.